What if everything you've been told about healthy drinks is only half the story? You walk into a store and you see shelves lined with brightly colored bottles promising energy, immunity, detox, focus. But behind the labels, behind the marketing, most of them are just variations of sugar, chemicals, and clever branding. Now imagine this instead. A time when there were no factories, no pharmacies, no synthetic supplements. And yet people still healed. They still recovered from illness. They still built strength, endurance, and resilience that many today struggle to achieve. The truth is, they weren't guessing. They were observing. For thousands of years, people paid attention to what worked. They passed that knowledge down, generation after generation, until it became embedded in the most widely read and preserved text in human history. The Bible doesn't just tell stories, it quietly documents practical wisdom, including what people drank to stay alive, stay strong, and recover when their bodies were failing. And here's where it gets interesting. Modern science, with all its technology and research funding, is starting to confirm something surprising. Many of those ancient drinks weren't just symbolic or cultural, they were functional. They had real, measurable effects on the body, effects that align almost perfectly with what those people experienced thousands of years ago. So in this journey, you're not just learning about old recipes, you're uncovering a forgotten system of healing, one that doesn't rely on trends or hype, but on consistency, simplicity, and biology that hasn't changed in thousands of years. We begin with one of the simplest drinks imaginable, something so basic most people overlook it completely: honey and water. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but that simplicity is exactly what makes it powerful. When ancient texts describe a land flowing with milk and honey, it wasn't just poetic language, it was a signal of abundance, nourishment, and health. Honey was one of the most valued substances in the ancient world. Not because it was sweet, but because it worked. Mixed with water, it became something entirely different, not a treat, but a tonic. When you dissolve raw honey into warm water, something changes. It becomes immediately available to your body. The natural sugars provide fast, stable energy. The enzymes begin interacting with your digestive system, and the antimicrobial compounds go to work quietly in the background. This is not the same as pouring processed honey into boiling tea. Heat destroys what makes honey effective. The difference between raw and processed here is the difference between something alive and something empty. Think about this. Long before antibiotics existed, people used honey to fight infections. Long before sports drinks, they used it for energy and recovery. Long before throat lozenges, they used it to soothe irritation and inflammation. And today, research is confirming those same effects. Not because science invented them, but because science finally caught up. And this sets the tone for everything you're about to discover. These drinks aren't complicated. They don't rely on exotic ingredients or expensive formulas. They rely on understanding how the body responds to what you give it. But the next drink might surprise you even more, because it challenges something most people misunderstand completely. Wine. Not the kind you're thinking of. Not excess, not indulgence, not modern drinking culture. Something very different. Something intentional. When you hear the word wine, your mind probably jumps to celebration, relaxation, maybe even overconsumption. But in the ancient world, wine was something else entirely. It was medicine, used carefully, deliberately, and always with purpose. There's a line that stands out because of how direct it is. It doesn't speak in metaphor, it gives instruction. Use a little wine for your stomach's sake, not for pleasure, not for escape, for your body. But here's what most people don't realize. The wine back then wasn't what you see today. It was diluted with water. It was often infused with herbs and spices. And it was consumed in small amounts, usually with food. This changes everything, because when you look at it this way, what they were drinking starts to resemble something much closer to a medicinal tonic than a recreational beverage. And modern research is beginning to explain why that matters. Red wine contains compounds that come directly from grape skins. These compounds have been studied for their effects on the heart and blood vessels. They support circulation, they help balance cholesterol, they reduce certain types of inflammation. But on their own, that's only part of the story. Now add spices like cinnamon, ginger, or cloves. Suddenly, you're not just drinking wine. You're combining multiple compounds that affect the body in different ways. Cinnamon helps regulate blood sugar. Ginger supports digestion and reduces inflammation. Cloves bring powerful antioxidant effects, and when the drink is warmed, these compounds become even more active. This is where the ancient mindset becomes clear. They weren't randomly mixing ingredients. They were building combinations that work together, and the key, every time, is moderation. One small cup, taken with intention, is very different from excess. The difference is so large, it's almost like comparing two completely different substances. The same drink that can support the body in small amounts can harm it when overused. And the ancient world understood that balance far better than we often do today. But now we move into something even more practical. Something used not by the wealthy or the elite, but by soldiers. Men who had to survive harsh conditions, contaminated water, and constant physical stress. They carried a drink that most people today would never think to try. And yet, it may be one of the simplest ways to protect your gut and stabilize your blood sugar: water mixed with vinegar. It doesn't sound appealing. In fact, it sounds harsh. But that's exactly why it worked. In a world without clean water systems, adding vinegar wasn't optional. It was protection. The acidity helped kill harmful bacteria. It made unsafe water safer to drink. And over time, people began to notice something else. It wasn't just preventing illness. It was improving digestion. Today, we understand that vinegar contains compounds that influence how your body processes food. It slows down the absorption of sugars. That means fewer spikes and crashes. It supports the balance of bacteria in your gut. That means better digestion, stronger immunity, and more stable energy throughout the day. And suddenly, what seemed like a crude survival trick starts to look like something much more advanced. This is the pattern you're going to see again and again. Ancient solutions that look simple on the surface, but reveal deeper layers the more you understand them. And the next drink takes this even further, because it comes from a fruit that was so valued, it was carved into temples. A fruit that modern science now ranks among the most powerful natural sources of antioxidants ever studied. And once you see what it does inside the body, you'll understand why it held that kind of status. Now we come to a fruit that wasn't just eaten, it was honored. Its shape was carved into sacred architecture, its image repeated again and again as a symbol of life, abundance, and vitality: the pomegranate. This wasn't decoration for beauty alone. Ancient cultures didn't waste effort like that. When something appeared this often, it meant it mattered. And now, thousands of years later, science is finally catching up to why. When you open a pomegranate, you don't just find juice. You find hundreds of small, jewel-like seeds, each packed with compounds that interact with your body in powerful ways. Among them is something called punicalagin, a compound rarely found anywhere else in nature. Inside your body, it transforms into substances that help reduce inflammation at a cellular level. Think about what that means. Inflammation is at the root of many modern health issues. Heart disease, joint pain, metabolic problems. They all share this common thread. And here you have a drink pressed from a single fruit that directly targets that process. Studies have shown that pomegranate juice can help lower blood pressure, support arterial health, and reduce the oxidation of LDL cholesterol. But what makes it truly stand out is its antioxidant strength. When measured against other well-known healthy drinks like green tea or even red wine, pomegranate consistently ranks higher. And yet, there's something important to understand. The power isn't just in the juice alone, it's in the whole fruit. The seeds, the membranes, everything working together. When you press fresh pomegranate juice and drink it immediately, you're getting the full spectrum, not a diluted version, not something processed and stored for months, something alive. This is a pattern the ancient world understood instinctively. The more whole the food, the more complete the effect. And that brings us to the next drink, one that takes two of the most important substances mentioned together again and again, and combines them into something deeply nourishing, milk and honey. But not the kind most people imagine. When you hear milk, you probably picture a cold carton from a supermarket, processed, pasteurized, standardized. But that's not the milk the ancient world knew. Their milk came mostly from goats, and that difference changes everything. Goat's milk behaves differently in the body. Its fat structure is smaller and easier to digest. Its protein is less likely to trigger irritation. For many people who struggle with dairy today, this distinction is crucial. What they react to isn't all milk. It's a specific type of milk that has been altered through modern processing and selective breeding. In its natural form, goat's milk is closer to what the human body can handle. It moves through the digestive system more smoothly. It provides minerals like calcium and magnesium in forms that are easier to absorb. And when it's fresh and unprocessed, it carries beneficial bacteria that support gut health. Now add honey. You're no longer just drinking milk, you're creating a combination that feeds your body on multiple levels. The milk provides structure, fats, and minerals. The honey brings antimicrobial activity and quick, usable energy. Together, they create something both gentle and powerful at the same time. This is why it was consumed as a recovery drink, after illness, during weakness. At times when the body needed support without stress, it nourishes without overwhelming the system. And there's something else happening here that's easy to miss. This combination doesn't just feed you, it supports your internal environment, your gut bacteria, your digestion, the foundation of your overall health. Because no matter how advanced modern nutrition becomes, it still comes back to this simple truth. If your gut isn't functioning well, nothing else works the way it should. And that leads us directly into the next drink, one that doesn't look impressive at all. In fact, it was considered food for the poor. Simple, cheap, easy to produce. Barley water. And yet, hidden inside this humble drink is one of the most powerful compounds for controlling blood sugar and supporting heart health that science has ever studied. And there's something else happening here that's easy to miss. This combination doesn't just feed you, it supports your internal environment, your gut bacteria, your digestion, the foundation of your overall health. Because no matter how advanced modern nutrition becomes, it still comes back to this simple truth. If your gut isn't functioning well, nothing else works the way it should. And that leads us directly into the next drink, one that doesn't look impressive at all. In fact, it was considered food for the poor. Simple, cheap, easy to produce. Barley water, and yet, hidden inside this humble drink is one of the most powerful compounds for controlling blood sugar and supporting heart health that science has ever studied. Barley was never considered glamorous. It wasn't reserved for kings or special occasions. It was the grain of ordinary people, laborers, travelers, families who needed something reliable, something that could sustain them day after day without fail. And yet, hidden inside this simple grain is something modern science now considers extraordinary. When barley is simmered in water, it releases a soluble fiber known as beta-glucan. You don't see it, you don't taste it directly, but inside your body it changes how everything works. It forms a gel-like substance in your digestive system, slowing down how quickly sugars enter your bloodstream. That means fewer spikes, fewer crashes, and more stable energy over time. But it doesn't stop there. This same compound has been shown to lower LDL cholesterol, the type associated with plaque buildup in arteries. It feeds beneficial gut bacteria, strengthening your microbiome, and it supports your immune system in ways that go far beyond simple nutrition. Think about that for a moment. A drink made by boiling a humble grain can influence your heart, your blood sugar, your digestion, and your immune response all at once. This is why it was used in recovery. When someone was sick, weak, or struggling to eat solid food, barley water became the answer. It was gentle, but it worked. It delivered nutrients in a form the body could absorb without effort. And once again, the preparation matters. Slow simmering, time, patience. This wasn't fast food, it was functional food. Now we move into something different. Not a grain, not a seed, but a fruit with a very specific role in healing. A fruit that was used not just internally, but externally to treat wounds. Figs. There's a moment recorded where a severe illness is treated with something unexpected. Not a rare herb, not a complex mixture. Just figs applied directly. At first it seems almost too simple, but when you look closer it begins to make sense. Figs contain natural enzymes that help break down damaged tissue. They support healing in a way that feels almost surgical, but entirely natural. And internally, when you turn figs into a drink, they become something just as powerful in a different way. When you steep figs in warm water, they release soluble fiber, especially pectin. It soothes irritation. It helps regulate digestion in a way that feels balanced, not forced. And then there's the mineral content. Figs are dense with magnesium, potassium, and calcium. These are not optional nutrients. They are foundational. They influence how your muscles contract, how your nerves signal, how your body maintains balance at a cellular level. In a time before supplements, figs filled that gap. They provided what the body needed without complication. As a drink, fig infusion becomes something deeply restorative. It's not aggressive. It doesn't shock the system. It works quietly, steadily, rebuilding from the inside. And that's something worth paying attention to. Because not all healing is dramatic. Sometimes the most effective changes are the ones you barely notice at first. Until suddenly you feel different, stronger, clearer, more stable. But now we shift into something more energetic. Something designed not just for healing, but for endurance, for survival during long journeys, harsh conditions, and extreme physical demand. A combination that fueled travelers, soldiers, and entire civilizations, dates and almonds. Imagine traveling for days under a burning sun, no refrigeration, no packaged food, no quick stops, just distance, heat, and the constant demand for energy. In those conditions, you don't carry things that are nice to have. You carry what keeps you alive. And again, two foods show up in those journeys, dates and almonds. On their own, each one is powerful. Dates provide quick energy, natural sugars that your body can use almost immediately. Not the kind that crash your system, but the kind that fuels it. Almonds, on the other hand, slow everything down. They provide healthy fats, minerals, and sustained energy that lasts. Now combine them into a drink. Suddenly, you're not just consuming calories, you're creating a balance, fast energy and slow energy working together, immediate fuel paired with long-term stability. This is why people relied on it during the most demanding conditions imaginable. But there's more happening beneath the surface. Dates are rich in potassium and iron. They support blood flow, oxygen transport, and muscle function. Almonds bring magnesium and vitamin E, supporting your nervous system and protecting your cells from stress. So when you drink this combination, you're not just boosting energy, you're reinforcing the systems that allow your body to keep going. This is what made it so valuable. It didn't just give you strength for a moment, it helped you maintain it. And in a world where survival often depended on endurance, that made all the difference. But now we move into something more subtle, less about energy, more about cleansing, something tied deeply to ritual, but rooted in real physical effects. An herb that was used when people wanted to be made clean, hyssop. There's a reason certain plants become symbols. They don't earn that status randomly. They earn it through repeated, undeniable results. Hyssop is one of those plants. It appears in moments of purification, in rituals that were meant to cleanse not just outwardly, but deeply. And for a long time, people assumed that was purely symbolic, until science started looking closer. Hyssop contains compounds that actively fight bacteria, viruses, and fungi. These aren't mild effects. They are strong enough to be measured, tested, and confirmed. And beyond that, it has something even more interesting. It helps your body clear itself. When you drink hyssop tea, it acts as an expectorant. That means it helps loosen and remove mucus from your lungs and airways. If you've ever felt that heaviness in your chest during illness, that congestion that just won't move, this is exactly what it targets. And when you combine it with something like mint, the effect becomes even more noticeable. Mint relaxes the digestive system. It reduces cramping, eases discomfort, and supports smoother digestion. So now you have a drink working in two directions at once, clearing your respiratory system while calming your digestive system. This dual action is something the ancient world valued deeply. They didn't separate the body into isolated systems, the way we often do today. They understood that everything is connected, and they treated it that way. But we're not done with plants yet, because the next one comes from a tree that has been revered for thousands of years, a tree associated with peace, longevity, and resilience. And hidden in its leaves is a compound so powerful it has been studied for its ability to fight a wide range of pathogens: olive leaf. The olive tree is one of the most enduring symbols of strength in human history. It survives in harsh soil, withstands extreme conditions, and continues producing for generations. Some olive trees have lived for hundreds, even thousands of years, and for a long time people focused almost entirely on its oil. But the real secret was hiding in the leaves. Olive leaves contain a compound called oleuropein. You've probably never heard of it, but your body responds to it in ways that are hard to ignore. It has been studied for its ability to fight viruses, bacteria, and fungi, not weakly, not occasionally, but across a wide range of pathogens. And that's only the beginning. Oleuropein also supports your cardiovascular system. It helps regulate blood pressure. It reduces inflammation. It protects your cells from oxidative damage. In simple terms, it helps your body stay stable under stress. Now think about how valuable that would have been in the ancient world. When illness appeared, when infections spread, when there were no modern treatments to rely on, people turned to what they knew worked. They turned to the olive tree. When you steep olive leaves into a tea, you extract these compounds directly into a form your body can absorb. The taste is slightly bitter, and that bitterness matters. In traditional systems of medicine, bitterness is often a signal. It tells you that something active is present, something your body will respond to. And this brings us to an important realization. Not everything effective tastes pleasant. Not everything beneficial feels comfortable. Sometimes the very qualities we avoid are the ones that make something work. But now we arrive at the final drink. And it brings everything together, not just physically, but symbolically, because it returns to the idea of cleansing, of renewal, of starting over with something that actually works at a deep level, a stronger preparation of hyssop. There's a difference between something that supports your body and something that actively resets it. The final drink on this list moves into that second category, a concentrated hyssop cleansing infusion. Unlike a simple tea, this preparation is slower. It's more deliberate. Instead of pouring boiling water over the herb, you let it sit in cool water for hours. Overnight, This preserves compounds that heat would otherwise destroy. It keeps the most volatile, most active elements intact. And when you drink it, the effect is different. This isn't just about soothing your throat or easing digestion. This is about clearing your system, your lungs, your sinuses, your respiratory pathways. It helps break up what's stuck. It helps move it out. It creates a feeling of space where there was once congestion. If you've ever struggled with lingering illness, with that feeling that something hasn't fully cleared, this is where this kind of drink stands out. And this is why it was associated with cleansing at such a deep level. Not because people were imagining it, because they were experiencing it. Over and over again, across generations, they saw what happened when they used it. They saw the difference in how people breathed, how they recovered, how they felt afterward. And they remembered. That's the thread running through everything you've just heard. Observation, experience, repetition. These drinks weren't created in a lab. They weren't tested in controlled environments at first. They were tested in real life, in illness, in recovery, in survival. And only the ones that worked stayed. So when you look back at this list, don't see it as a collection of old recipes. See it as a system, a way of thinking about your body that focuses on support, balance, and consistency rather than quick fixes. Because the truth is, your body hasn't changed nearly as much as your environment has. It still responds to what it recognizes. Simple compounds, natural combinations, substances it has interacted with for thousands of years. And maybe the real question isn't whether these drinks work.